it wasn't that we launched the business with this big dream of, hey, we're going to build this up for 3 years, sell it, and then hit the gold mine one more time. It was, if we were going to do this business again, how would we do it differently? What were the things that the business did that added value to advisors and clients, employees' lives, shareholder lives, and what took away from those things? And we just focused on the good stuff.
Hey everybody, welcome back to The Connected Advisor. I'm your host, Kyle Van Pelt, co-founder and CEO of Milemarker. And today I have the privilege of being joined by Jason Gordo. Jason is the co-founder and president of Modern Wealth Management. He is also an alumnus of Gonzaga. We're going to talk about that a little bit today. Go Zags for Jason's sake here. He has just had an incredible career in the wealth management industry. And we're going to have a great conversation today about what it takes to grow a wealth management firm and to be a repeated success in this industry. So Jason, thanks so much for taking time out to join the show.
How great to be with you. Thanks for the invite. Unfortunately, I was heartbroken this weekend over our performance in the tournament, but it's okay. We got dominated by Purdue.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, you took my opener there of, as we're filming this, Gonzaga just got knocked out of the March Madness run. I mean, you all have just had some heartbreaks over the past couple of years. So I feel like on one hand, exciting to be a Gonzaga fan because you're always in it. The program's at a really high level right now, but you just can't seem to get over that hump. I mean, what's that like?
It's depressing every March, obviously. I mean, you're right. We've made it to the championship game recently. We've made it to the Final Four a number of times in the last decade or the last 6-7 years. We get to play spoiler oftentimes in the tournament. Yep. I think this is our 24th year in the tournament in a row, second longest streak going in the tournament. So we're always there. We've never actually got to hoist the trophy, but someday.
Yeah. Just got to keep building that brand. People are going to keep showing up. It's going to be your turn at some point.
It's Spokane, Washington, by the way, Jimmy Kimmel. That's where the Zags are from.
Yeah. Oh man, that's awesome. All right. So I love to open these podcasts with the same question for everybody. So Jason, this industry is very interesting and unique to me, but I've found that most people have either a relatively traditional path into this industry or a very untraditional path. It's like a barbell. So I love to ask everybody what your money moment is, because I've found whether you have a traditional path into the space or an untraditional one, everybody has a moment in their life that I kind of call a money moment that was like, oh, this is what made me kind of want to do this for a career. So for you, what was your money moment?
That's an easy question to answer. For me, I vividly remember this event. It was my 16th birthday. My mom and dad took me and my, at the time, then girlfriend, now wife. So we've been together since I was 15 years old, and I'll be 50 later this year. So that's a bit of time we've been together. So the night of my 16th birthday, they take us out to this really nice restaurant in town, and I'm waiting for a box with some keys in it. I know that I'm going to receive a car. Instead, I get an envelope with this really colorful, cool piece of paper on it. I said, what in the world is this? And my test said, let me explain. It had Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck and Goofy and all the, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, all the beautifully printed piece of paper with all the Walt Disney characters on it. It was a certificate, and in the corner it said 100. And I said, what is this? And he said, you own part of Disneyland, the Walt Disney Company. You're like an owner. You're investing in Disneyland now and all the things that they produce. And I was like, what? Where's the car? And he's like, you're not getting a car. You're getting the lesson in, planning for the future. And he says, the next day, just go out and bring the newspaper to breakfast. That's when yesterday's news used to get delivered to you every day in the form of paper in the morning. And so I brought yesterday's news in. At that time, the business section, they printed every single holding in the markets. And he showed me how to look up DIS and what it had done the day before. I was hooked, man. That was my moment where I was like, wait a minute, I'm doing nothing and my money is making money or losing money. That summer I went to work and I earned some money, and I said, Dad, I have some money. What do I do with it? And he says, I'll introduce you to this guy, Ray, at Merrill Lynch. he makes a phone call and introduces me to Ray, and I go into Ray's office and by myself with my then girlfriend, so just the two of us, not with my parents. And Ray sits in this really cool, luxurious corner office overlooking town, and he was like, "Yeah, I help your dad. I help your grandfather. What do you like? What are your hobbies? What are your interests?" And I shared with him. I was playing a lot of golf at the time as a teenager. I said, "Oh, I love to play golf." And he said, "What kind of golf clubs do you use?" And I, Callaway Golf. And he goes, "Did you know you could invest in Eli Callaway? The symbol is ELY." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And he shared a little more. And that afternoon, I invested in Callaway Golf. And I was hooked, man, because every summer I'd earn a little bit of money, earn a little bit of money and invest. And when I was 22 years old, I got married, and my wife and I we were able to buy our first home at 22 years old because of what the stock market created for us, right? We had the discipline to put the money away, but the market was great to us and allowed me to buy a home. And at that moment, when I bought that home, that's when I knew I wanted to be just like Ray. And so I called him. I said, how do I turn into you, Ray? And he gave me some advice. I accelerated his timeline a little bit and called him. And I said, "I did everything you told me to do. Now hire me." And he did. He was a Smith Barney at the time, but that's how I got started. It literally was this bright, colorful piece of paper, and my life changed forever. And it was a hell of a lot better deal than getting the keys to a car at 16.
That is so incredible. I actually have somewhat of a similar story that I'll just share briefly. My dad always talked about why you should invest in whatever, but it wasn't actually my dad. I have a brother who's considerably older than me. He's about 16 years older than me. And so he got really into investing and all of that stuff. And one year for my birthday, he bought me a share of Nintendo stock, kind of similar thing.
Yeah,
He's like, "Hey, you love to play these. Did you know you could do this?" And I think I was still a little too young. I wasn't 16. I was still a little too young to really understand what the concept was. But I remember the sheet of paper you're talking about, right? I was like, what does this mean? And it's so cool when it clicks for the first time that, hey, I didn't have to start this. I didn't have to be the person who works there every day or whatever, but I can take money I've worked hard to earn and I can become a part owner in that. And I also remember too, just vividly, I was, I still am, loved like Warren Buffett and all of those. And it's like, how many people worked as hard as they could to buy a single share of Berkshire stock so they could go to the annual meeting and be a part of it and all of that stuff. It's amazing what stock ownership can do.
It's awesome. Yeah. I mean, again, my life is completely different than it would have been had I not gotten that piece of paper that night.
Yeah. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you. And I know, you still got plenty of career ahead of you, but have you had any Jasons come to you, right? Now that you're sitting on that side of the table, have you had any experiences or opportunities to help someone like he helped you out?
It's so interesting you had a question. I have a ton of examples that I could give. I was an advisor at that in the seat for 16 years of my career. I had countless parents who I was providing financial planning and investment management and kind of some tax strategy advice to, who would come to me and say, "Hey, I have this kid, or I have these children, or I have this grandchild who is somewhat interested in investing. Would you sit down and help them?" And I remember, I gave out the book, The Millionaire Next Door, to a number of people. One of them had absolutely stuck. This guy's name is Joe. He read it on his honeymoon. On the way to Tokyo, he gave it to his new bride on the way home and said, "You have to read this book, and then we're going to meet with that guy." And they are wildly successful and very, very wealthy today. They credit just some good foundation in learning about the world. They credit me with some of their success, and I don't take it as much as I handed them a book and I spent some time with them, And I have lots of other stories. I have a gentleman, young person, he's 20 here in town, lost his father about 5 years ago. And I spend a little bit of time with him each year, kind of working on his investments. I love it. The art of, giving back is what really energizes, empowers me forward. So, yeah.
I love it. I love it. All right. I want to kind of dive into modern a bit. So you've been in the industry for a while. You just shared some of your start, et cetera. But as a co-founder of this firm, you're taking another shot at it. So I kind of want to ask you from one angle. I mean, there's lots of people out there. We could talk about all the demographics of why it might make sense to be in wealth management right now. But what was the the angle maybe you saw, or what are you doing differently at Modern than maybe you've done in the past that made you say, I want to take another crack at this. I want to take another swing. I want to start this up again and go for it.
My two co-founders and I, we were all part of United Capital that sold to Goldman. We were all fully integrated into Goldman. We left for different reasons on different timelines and had no view that we would come back together. But as good friends do, we just continued to chat, and one conversation led to the next, which led to the three of us having lunch at this beautiful resort in Southern California. And at the time, I thought I was just going to go kind of invest in and continue to invest in real estate and then work in my community as just kind of a mentor, frankly, to young people. I tried that for a couple months and I grew extremely bored rapidly. Not the mentoring part, but it just didn't work for me. When you're kind of a high energy, go lots of places, do lots of things entrepreneur, going from 100 miles an hour to zero is really hard. And my two co-founders and I, we just, again, one conversation led to the next, which led to a business plan that hired a banker, and then we met some private equity partners and we launched the business. And it wasn't that we launched the business with this big dream of, hey, we're going to build this up for 3 years, sell it, and then hit the gold mine one more time. It was, if we were going to do this business again, how would we do it differently? What would we focus on? Where do we feel like we added a lot of value to shareholders? In the last company, there was a big team of people. There was about 715 employees at United Capital when it transacted. But what were the things that the business did that added value to advisors and clients, employees' lives, shareholder lives? And what took away from those things? And we just focused on the good stuff. And we're avoiding all the things that we felt didn't add value to the business.
That's so interesting to hear that. And I can appreciate the going 100 miles an hour down to zero is just tough. I mean, maybe you don't want to do that. I get that. So you come back in, but is there a specific niche or angle or focus that Modern has that maybe, previous firms didn't, or how are you viewing that?
One of the things that we're very focused on is, a lot of firms will say this, that financial planning is a service, not a product, right? It's ongoing. It's not a one and done trick to find out where all your money is, to round that up, to charge an advisory fee. And that's really how you get paid. So, I'm not going to say financial planning is a differentiated thing at Modern Wealth. I'm not going to say management is a differentiated thing at Modern Wealth, because I think just clients are expecting great investment management from their advisory firm. I think the thing that we do really well, and this was our first acquisition, Barber Financial Group out of Kansas City, is a large wealth management business, about $900 million of AUM. And then we were able to gather 2 additional offices that were connected. And that added up to about $1.4 billion, maybe off a little bit there on those first 3 offices. But what they also had was a small tax team led by CPAs, and they were doing tax future planning, not tax compliance work. So it was all looking through the windshield and seeing what the tax consequences of today's decisions might be and sources of income might be down the road, and really helping clients understand how to avoid some of those massive tax bills that are in their future if they did nothing. And that was our aha moment, in that we used to think you could just be connected to centers of influence and great tax professionals and get great work. But at Modern, we call it the 3 C's. So CFP, CPA, CFA, all in the room together, the 3 C's. And we've evolved that now to the 4 C's and included the client. It's a referral that I sent to the firm that kind of gave me that sense of the client. We had the planner in the room working on the financial plan. We had the tax professional in the room working on their tax strategy and tax planning, and a CFA working on their investment strategy. I get a text from this prospect while they're in the meeting. It said, wow, for the first time in my life, I have 3 disciplines all speaking the same language with me in the room at the same time. This is powerful stuff. He rolled over $7 million from Schwab and Vanguard and committed to $1 million annual contribution because of the integrated planning, investments, and tax professionals all working together. We never had that in the last company. And when I talk to advisors, I tell them how powerful that is. Such a simple thing to add as a tax business. And we've since invested in additional tax businesses one of our acquisitions was a large tax team with a small wealth management offering to bring more tax resources to the business. So there's a lot of things that we do differently here. That's just one small one that is impactful in a client's life.
That's so unique because I think that actually really summarizes and packages well one of the things we've been seeing as a trend in the industry, which is, for years people just sort of said, "Hey, I'm a fiduciary, I have a CFP, I'm a planner," and that was enough to maybe differentiate them from somebody else. Well, now, especially who knows what's going to happen with it or whatever, but ever since the threat of DOL coming out, everybody is now a fiduciary, fee only or mostly fee only planner, et cetera. So that you can't compete on that anymore. So what we've been seeing a ton is you have to have a bunch of different services, right? People are looking for, I always say, one person that they can really trust, because I think one of the experiences that happens a lot with clients is, hey, it's been hard enough for me to come to you and talk about my dreams and my fears and my hopes and all of that. But now you're telling me I got to go talk to an estate attorney about this, and I got to talk to an insurance person about this, and all. Can I just talk to you about it? And then you go talk with those other people and get me the service that I need. So it's cool to hear this 4C concept, which is really what I heard is, hey, we're going to bring tax together. We're going to bring investment together. We're going to bring all of these things into one area in a really easy to understand way.
So it's financial planning, it's tax planning and prep. And, you got to do the prep as well, the actual compliance work. It's the investments, it's estate planning, and then it's life, long-term care, disability delivery as well. And you mentioned all those disciplines. Not only am I the financial planner in the old world saying you got to go talk to your tax person, your insurance person, and your estate planning attorney, they all speak different languages. And I've now put them in a position where I believe the client hired the advisor and they're delegating that work to us. If I say, you've got to go meet all these other disciplines and do all this work, I'm just delegating back to them the work that they were hiring me to do. I'm no longer valuable to them. I'm just the person pointing them to other professionals.
Yeah, so well said, man.
This podcast is brought to you by Turncast. We make game-changing content for fintech and financial services companies. Learn more at turncast.com.
I'm interested in the acquisition of the larger tax company, and we'll talk a little bit about M&A here in a minute. I think what's interesting as you read about it is a lot of tax firms, even larger ones, seem to be struggling to get and retain talent because, it's notorious in tax prep places and more traditional tax places that it's incredibly long hours during the busy seasons and stuff. But the business model is maybe not as solid as some other ones. So when you combine it with a wealth management practice or things like that, and you get this more synergistic opportunity, it seems like that really unlocks value for both sides of the equation, which is very interesting to me. So did you see the same thing? Do you see that as an opportunity as well?
I don't know if this is an accurate statistic, but it's one that I've heard from two different CPAs, and that is there's been a 17% reduction in tax professionals industry-wide since 2020. So 17% of the industry is gone because of the things that you just pointed out, the long hours, the work is not satisfying or rewarding. The way that we've engaged with our tax professionals is they're in the middle of the financial planning engagement, and they have an extremely valuable role to play in the client's life. If we can legally reduce your silent partner distribution, the federal government and my state, California, the state of California's income distribution portion of your money, your account, if we can legally reduce those into the future, CPAs get excited about that, right? Because they're now moving lives forward. They're not just telling you what happened last year and how much you owe or what you're getting back, but they're really helping to impact a person's life. And that's, why I got into the business in the first place. It's why most financial advisors got into the business in the first place, which was I want to positively impact the people around me and the lives of the clients that have trusted me with their finances. That I want to impact them. We're giving CPAs in our business that same opportunity, and that's energizing. It's engaging, and they want to come to work and do the hard stuff as well as the compliance work and the boring stuff. So it's definitely a work-life balance issue in that industry. I think that's why you've seen such a retraction in the work and the people that are doing that work. So we're trying to make it fun, engaging, rewarding, and that they're able to truly impact people's lives.
Yeah, man, that's so cool. All right, so let's stay on that topic a little bit. Let's talk about M&A. So Modern has kind of been on the M&A path and as a growth pattern since you launched the firm. Like you said, you got some great equity partners. That's kind of been part of the strategy from the beginning. There's a lot we could unpack here, but I'd love to just start with, how do you identify a firm that makes sense to bring into Modern? I know there's lots of firms out there who are trying to be bought. I know there's, no shortage of people who might be out there, but I think you want to make sure you're getting good fits. You want to make sure that you're finding firms that fit what you all are trying to do. How do you do that?
Anytime I talk to a potential partner, I talk about three different buckets, right? The first is cultural fit. Are we generally going to get along? Do we see the world the same way? Are we going to like each other? We're partners. I equate it to, look, I've built a big house with lots of bedrooms in it. And every time we bring a partner on board, we're putting somebody in one of those rooms and we have to share the living room and the kitchen and the restrooms. And are we just generally going to maintain the place the way that we all want it maintained? And we're going to have adult conversations and get along really well. So that's super important, is that cultural fit. And we've said no to a number of firms that didn't make that first kind of lens of cultural fit. The second is business model fit. Do you believe in financial planning? Do you believe in the way we manage money and the way our investment platform it gets laid out? Do you believe in the way we use technology? Do you believe in the way that we serve clients and deliver? Then we get to the third bucket, which is just the deal framework of the math, right? The currency and what is that currency makeup of a transaction. But how are we finding people? The first was the Barber Financial Group acquisition. I had a relationship with Dean Barber. Mike Capelli knew Dean Barber. And when we were just getting going, I actually just reached out to Dean for advice. I said, hey, if you were ever going to sell your firm, what would that firm need to look and be like? What would get you excited? I'm not, talking to you about selling this your business, but what would get you excited? And he said, well, first of all, I am excited. Tell me more. And he was the first one. It was awesome. It was just, Dean has been a phenomenal partner and somebody that I'm really glad is part of our firm. So you ask how we find them. That was a prior relationship along with Casper and Kenneth Walla. Those were the three first firms that made up our platform acquisition, about $1.3, $1.4 billion of assets. The fourth firm that we acquired was also brought to us two ways, one by Dean Barber and a banker. So they had hired somebody to help them analyze the industry and look at potential acquirers, and they also knew Dean. And after they had hired the banker, they asked Dean how this all come together. And then they came to us in large part due to Dean's relationship. The fifth firm was that tax firm that I just talked about. And they too were a referral by Dean and Bud. So Dean and Bud, these are friends of Dean and Bud. Bud Casper up in Kansas City. It's a second office in Kansas City that we have. The sixth firm came by way of the banker community. So this was a large team that came out of LPL, about $1.2 billion of AUM. It was a banked process. They met lots and lots of buyers. Culturally, we got along really well. Business fit, we got along very, very well. And I think they were excited about our currency stack. It's not just cash, it's cash and equity. And then how we put that deal together. Seventh firm that hasn't been announced, but has closed. That firm came by way of a banker as well, an industry contact that had a relationship with this firm. The eighth firm will be another friend of the firm, so somebody that we had a prior relationship with. Ninth firm, that too will be a banker kind of offered opportunity to us. So it's a combination of prior relationship, uncovering opportunities on our own just by picking up and turning over a lot of rocks, like all the national acquirers are doing, trying to see what's underneath them and if there's somebody interesting to talk to, and then the banker community. So this industry is full of great sell-side bankers, and we have a great relationship with the majority of them, and they're surfacing opportunity every week.
That's incredible. So what's the goal? You're out there, you have these wonderful relationships, you're actively acquiring. Do you have a target you're trying to get to of X number of firms, X number of assets? Where are you going, Jason?
We get asked that question all the time, and I have a terrible answer, but this is the truth. We'd love to be in the $25 to $30 billion zone, by 2028, 2029, somewhere in that kind of timeline. There's nothing magic about that goal other than that's kind of our own internal obsession to, build a great business have exceptional partners and get to kind of a bulk. And we believe that that 25 to $30 billion zone is where you can really, you're at size, you're at scale, you're running a very efficient business. So our goal is to build a great company just with great partners and have a lot of fun doing it. We have no destination. We have no end zone. There's like not some magic, like we get to that number of offices and that AUM and this much revenue and we sell the business. That's not our focus. Our focus every week is, again, really simple. Find exceptional people who we believe would be great partners, who we believe would have a lot of fun together and build a great company. And somebody has 3, 4, $500 million of AUM, they're coming to us. That's a meaningful size firm for us, right? We're not at 30 or 40 or 50 billion or 300 billion, where if somebody brought a 3 or 4 or $500 million firm to a firm that's of really big size, that's the equivalent of throwing a bucket of water in the ocean. Doesn't matter. But to us, it really matters. And we have to make sure we're bringing on the right people at the right time and the right locations.
Man, that's so well said. It's super interesting, right? Because as this strategy has evolved in our industry, you're totally right. You get to be 30, $100 billion. All of a sudden, a really successful firm, a $500 million firm is no longer a great target for you, right? So you kind of have these different levels of acquirers, and it's a very fascinating dynamic in this space. Has it gotten any more challenging as the environment has evolved with interest rates and, all of this sort of stuff? Like, there was lots and lots of inorganic growth happening. And then, a lot of things changed in the capital markets and all of that type of stuff. Has that slowed you all down at all? Or are you all still running at the same pace?
I mean, we're literally 11 months old. We'll be 1 year into this on April 22nd. We're equity sponsored. We have a private equity firm, great private equity firm, Rescue Partners. And it's an equity commitment. So we don't have any debt on the balance sheet today. So interest rates haven't been a problem for us. Another interesting fact about our business, our firm, is the management team, like individuals on the management team, not only did they come here to be an employee and have kind of an equity allocation granted to them or issued, like a lot of firms do, we actually offered them the opportunity to co-invest alongside the executive team and the private equity firm. And so the majority of our management team, we've worked with for a minimum of 7 years. I think that's the least tenured person on our management team that we have direct working experience with, most over a decade of experience with us. So they came here and they wrote checks to co-invest in the business. And as such, you get a management team that these aren't employees. These are owners of the firm and investors in the firm. So they have a truly vested interest in a positive outcome and making sure that our partners are well cared for. So we haven't had a lot of issue finding M&A opportunity. Interest rates have not been an issue for us. We have a great equity partner that is backing us.
Fantastic. Let's talk a little bit about the technology side of all of this. So a lot of the firms that we speak to that are acquiring other firms, bringing them in, things like that, kind of trying to get all the technology to work together, get it all to talk together. All of that is difficult, especially when you're acquiring as fast as you are, right? You don't have time to just get everything nice and easy before you bring on the next one because you don't know when opportunity is going to strike. So talk to me a little bit about how you all are tackling the technology beast as you're growing as fast as you are.
This is another prior term learning. So day one, they have the Modern Wealth, this logo on their front door and oftentimes a blue painted wall just like this one with the logo hanging on the wall. They get the gear, all the logo gear and the business card, and they're on our website. There's a lot of work that goes into a day one integration, and we're consolidating to our tech platform. Mike Capelli, one of my co-founders, that's his world, is integrating firms and understanding great technology, understanding how to use outsourced vendors to move data, to get firms prepped for that day one experience. And so we're not integrating technology. They're joining our tech platform, and we're moving all that client data as they're onboarding to the firm. So it's not messy for us. It's actually very clean. And we have some great third-party outsourced partners that are doing all that work.
Awesome, man. I love it. Well, this has been a great conversation. I could talk to you for, a whole lot longer. So maybe we're going to have you come back on the show and we can continue the conversation. But I want to move into the final segment of the show that we have. We call this the Milemarker Minute. So it's a fun lightning round series of questions, lighthearted, just to give people a chance to get to know you outside of what you're doing at Modern Wealth Management. The goal is to try and answer all the questions in a minute or less. So first question, at the beginning of the show, we talked about Gonzaga getting knocked out. Again, I'm sorry about that. But as we sit here and record, who do you think is going to win the March Madness tournament?
Got to go Connecticut. I mean, they're just a juggernaut. I'd love to see Zachy to get one just because he destroyed us, but it's got to be Connecticut.
Okay, Connecticut. All right, you live out in Monterey, California. You love golf. Monterey is known. You've got Pebble Beach and the other courses there. So if you had to choose playing Pebble Beach, Spyglass, or Spanish Bay, which one are you picking?
Cypress Point. I know that wasn't on the list, but I had the pleasure of playing it a couple of weeks ago. It's unbelievable. I've had the great privilege of playing all of them. Of those three, I'd pick Pebble.
Okay, that's awesome. So Pebble over the other ones, but yeah, I mean Cypress. That's why I didn't add it in. Cypress is like in a realm all on its own. It's incredible. To stay on the golf theme, you like to play golf. What is the number one course on your bucket list that you have not played yet that you'd love to play?
I think again, I've played Cypress a couple of times. Augusta, you cannot just like go book a tee time at Augusta, but that certainly would be a bucket list item. Absolutely, yeah.
I love it. One place in the world that you would love to travel to that you've never traveled?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, both my wife and I are turning 50 in the next 12 months, and he has always wanted to go to Australia, so I'm told that's where we're going next.
Oh, man, that's incredible. I hope you have a great time. Enjoy that nice long flight.
Yeah, well, that's okay.
Yeah, it'll be great. It's for a good reason. All right, last question. Stack of books behind you. I like to ask this to a lot of people. What's the best book that you read in 2023? Or you can go up to this year as well. But best book you've read in the last year?
2023. You know what? It's this book. Lessons from the World's Longest Scientific Study of Happiness. It's called The Good Life.
Okay.
This is a fantastic read. So Harvard has run this study, for decades. They've interviewed people since they were like 10 years old, started 90 years ago, right? Most of the participants are dead that started then, but they know the truth of the person's story because they've been interviewing them every 2 or 3 years since they were 10 years old, 15 years old, 20 years old. And they've watched them graduate from high school and what they did after high school and how they got married and when they got married and where they moved to and what their career was and how life unfolded for them. They tell great stories about how to live a good life. Like
awesome.
What were the things that happened and how did these lives unfold and how does your memory truly fade as you age? And I'm not going to give the book away, but it's all about how these lives, again, have unfolded and how you can be happy.
That's cool. Awesome, man. Well, you survived the Milemarker minute. This was a really fun conversation for me. I enjoyed it. Like I said, I feel like we barely scratched the surface, so we might have to have you come back on and we can dive even deeper. But Jason, thanks for coming on, dropping some insight, sharing your experiences with the Connected Advisor community.
I'd love to come back on. This is a great time. And Kyle, you always do such a great job with these. And
man,
I appreciate you having us, having me, and would love to come back and go anywhere you want to go.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much. Yeah. All right, everybody, this has been another episode of the Connected Advisor. Please make sure to click follow or subscribe wherever you're listening to this or watching this, and we will see you on the very next episode. Take care until then.